Good morning, my friends. Oh my goodness. Hello. Hi, I'm Katie. My phone was just being weird. I am coming on today to share just to share and talk a little bit about trauma without like sitting in the trauma, which is kind of weird. But also, I think a lot of us are in it right now. And hi, Darla. My cat says hi. So, epigenetics is one of the words that we can use to discuss what happens when trauma occurs across generations. So it's inherited and passed on. And it is a genetic event, genetic as in to our DNA. So what I have here is these are different kinds of adverse childhood experiences that have been identified in the literature and in research. Hi. That if we experience them when we're in gestation and in early childhood, they are predictors for future like autoimmune disorders and other kinds of situations. Hello, Destiny, Courtney. And then over here, this is the inner landscape of Taoist alchemy, which is a way to contemplate Kitty. It's a way to contemplate somatically a lot of what's going on. And where do I want to start? I should have put some music on first, of course. Please hold. Oh my goodness. Hi, Darla. My cat says hi. Yes, Darla. She's being a little pain in my ass. All right, so here we go. This is the inner landscape in a Western sense. This is our fascia, connective tissue, that goes from our head to our feet, and it gives us our body's morphology. So like it holds up the skeleton and it surrounds all of our muscles. This fascia is also connecting all of our connective tissue. And these are just two of the fascial lines. This is the one that goes right where our belly button is. And then this is a line that is kind of deep in our back. And it goes from the soles of our feet, you can see, to the occiput here, which is one of the places we can experience tension headaches, but also tech neck and other kinds of things. And then we have fascia that goes around all of our organs. It's called visceral fascia, it's specific to our organs. We also have fascia around all of our nerves. And we have fascia that creates cavities, that creates the central nervous system's space inside. And that fascia is called parietal fascia. And that is not something that I'm even educated in generally. I have to do a lot of that learning on my own, even with people who are doing fascia research. How do I want to show it to you? Because parietal fascia, there we go, creates the boundaries. So this is what our parietal fascia creates. You have experienced parietal fascia directly if you've ever peeled an egg, like a, what are those called, Darla? Hard-boiled egg. And there's that little film on the inside of the shell, akin to parietal fascia. And so it's like this lining. This goes, oh my God, well, this is why I'm here, Soulful Vibes, to share. And yeah. So if the body keeps the score, our fascia is the sheet music. And sheet music is an interface. It's not a map. it is not even what would I say? It's not even like a referral thing. Sheet music, I think I have some sheet music here. First of all, you don't need sheet music to be a musician, right? Anybody can play music. We can all sing. But when it gets written down, the notation is, oh, did I clean it out of my computer? Sometimes I take images out of my phone. Stop it, Darla. Here we go. This is very complex sheet music. Very, very complex. What the fuck? Oh my goodness me, okay? And people who can interpret this, I used to be able to. I haven't played piano in many, many years. But that means it's going to be above middle C. That means it's going down. All of that is sharp, flat, it's like semiotics, okay? The word for it is meme or memetics. And so you read and interpret this, right, as a musician, and then you play the music. This is my personal understanding of the nature of this. This is what our tissue looks like, our fascia looks like when it's alive. When our fascia is alive, it is very much like a Buckminster Fuller dome. It looks like all the stuff that goes around our organs, you could contemplate as though, not the same, but as though like spider webs go around something. It's very akin to like clothing from the skin in. And fascia, y'all, is where it is the location of pain pathways, hormones, pleasure, problems, how we experience pressure, how we experience movement and mobility. If you have hypermobile tissues, you know what I'm talking about. I was just texting with a friend about how tough, at least for me, the last couple of days have been. It's been so fucking cold where I live. And I have had to be out in the cold. And last night, yesterday, it wasn't even nighttime. It was like 3 o'clock. I was like, I'm done. I had pain in my soft tissues. I had pain issues in the tissues because it's cold. And cold makes you kind of like contract. So one of and please, I'm just like having thoughts for now, and hopefully we'll get on a good shared subject. But when people talk about raising the vibration, okay, and having high vibes, blah, 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 what that means physically, the higher pitched a sound is, the taller and shorter the wave is. It's a taller, shorter wave. Physically, as physics, higher vibrating electrons or whatever, I think it's electrons, but the higher vibrating, when they're vibrating at higher frequencies, there's less and less movement. It starts to create solid forms. And then longer waves or low vibe are lower in tone, but they're also closer to the ground. They're closer to whatever the x-axis is. So like a long wave would be like a puddle, and a short wave would be throwing something into the puddle or a drop of water falling on the puddle. And my personal lived experience has been it's the longer waves that generate more coherence in the body than the shorter waves. And we all know that through the brain stem. So there are frequencies that our brain stem, our medulla oblongata, can experience that will change the state of our brain. My goodness me. One of them is theta waves. Theta is, what is that, like 7 or 8 hertz frequencies? That's not a big long, whatever. But in the brain, if we're oscillating, I'm going to get a picture. Hold on. My point being, and I've been really contemplating how to bring this forward more formally today because I want to teach a workshop on it this month. The whole concept of post-traumatic stress, of PTSD, it doesn't exist for our species right now. Certainly not here in the US. Not with the regime that we're experiencing, and not with the danger and threat that is being propagated. And if there's no post in PTSD, then these models, the model of the body keeps the score, or the model of anything that's asking us to regulate, none of them will work. They will all fail. Mathematically, physically, to like actual fucking like Einstein science, it will fail. And so what's happening, okay, is this is the regulation model, Katie's variation, where Western medicine, all of the medical model is trained to intervene. It is trained to disrupt, stop, and then start in a new place or in a new way. And if you and I, again, this is my opinion, if we are obligating ourselves to be regulated through tragedy, then we're also going to be obligating ourselves into certain kinds of what's the word? Surveillance. It creates a kind of self-surveillance where you're either in or out of regulation. And if your body mind is just occurring in a way that's not fully peaceful, totally calm, and totally present, then it turns into, oh, I'm failing. I'm either in or out. A resonance model, and this is just what I use. This is the landscape that I go into with this work, this neuroaffective somatics. First of all, the environment's already there. This is a chart from Chinese medicine. Secondly, if we go to something like Chinese medicine, the language is going to be different so that when you and I are searching for concepts, searching for terms, we're not ending up back in these regulation models, in these supremacy models, these high vibe models. It's a way to disrupt the skinny white yoga chick, which I am one archetypically. Do you want to say hi to my kitty? Want to say hi to Darla? Let's say hi, Darla. Hold on. Oh my goodness, it's Darla. Look at her. She's been sleeping on my heart. Haven't you? You've been sleeping right on my heart because it's a sad heart. Yeah. She's a very pretty girl. So a resonant model is going to be much more musical than a regulation model. It's going to be more math. And a lot of these physics guys, and most of them are men, will invoke, isn't she lovely? They will invoke music, which is not what this is looking at here. This is looking at epigenetic modulation. Epigenetics, I consider myself an epigeneticist, by the way. That's like been my primary orientation since high school. And epigenetics is contemplating and studying how trauma occurs across the ages, typically at 50 or so year chunks. So instead of looking at like a generation is 25 years or whatever, 50 years, at least that's how I've been trained, or 3 generations, where epigenetically, if a human is pregnant, okay, whatever is gestating in here is having a concurrent experience, a lived one, not a sentient or conscious one, right? But a lived experience of the stress and the happiness and everything that the parent is experiencing. Assuming the fetus is a, what's the word? Fertile female phenomena. We're just going to do it biologically, not socially. Every egg that this gestating fetus then has is also experiencing the stress and traumas and of the pregnant human. And if this generation has a baby that is a fertile female phenomena, so does the chain continue. It also happens through the father, but I like doing it through the mother. I have a uterus, right? I don't have a child. But one thing happens to 3 generations. In 2020, y'all, regardless of any of our individual experiences during those initial days of COVID, planetarily, our species experienced an epigenetic event. Planetarily. COVID was planetary. AIDS was global. And the difference is technology. It's very specifically algorithm and search. Yes, Kitty. Oh, she would like to have some kitty nip. Maybe she can have some catnip and I'll have a little myself, not of the nip, but of a different spice. Would you like to have, somebody gave her and Norman a Secret Santa gift of catnip, and this little baby girl has she's taken on the nip. Come here, Darla. Darla, what's this? What's that say? That says kitty. Oh, there's Norman coming out of the closet. The conjunction of the spheres. Ooh, I need to know what you mean by that, and I love that. Quite possibly, yes. I think about it in terms of ordinary and extraordinary. And ordinary is medical model. Ordinary is always going to lean towards or be oriented towards concrete, measurable. Synthesis is going to be very important in ordinary models. That's your dialectic therapy, cognitive therapy. All fucking math and physics is required to, it's like amazing how attached people get to being able to just like get it to a number. But that's not how you and I experience. And it's also not going to be the same. So here I just have firefighters manager and exile labeled. This is internal family systems language. That is a model I'm trained in that looks at different archetypes. But as layers, this exile layer, this is the deep threat of primary trauma. Primary trauma being shit that happens when you're in vitro, gestating, as well as I would consider most early childhood experiences primary, and then things like getting in a car accident, breaking a bone, getting in a fight at school, having to face like whatever, but it's like, there's a moment, there's an event. There's another kind of trauma called secondary trauma, which I align here to the manager, because the secondary trauma is where we see and experience things and hear things like caregiver burnout, the second hand, like the witnessing of a thing is secondary. So let's say my brother, I'm a twin, David was bitten by a dog and had an infection in his brain when we were very young. That was a primary trauma for him. I experienced a secondary trauma, witnessing my brother's suffering. And as the manager, our manager aspects are the ones that are doing the predictive processing, noticing the patterns, but as children, they're also helping us learn how to appease. So this, going back a few years, I was at a scientific conference and there was some really interesting research coming out of Europe, which is often the case. There's just a different way of contemplating sometimes. And the words that were offered by this researcher, and this was specific to intimate violence, which is something that all of us are being bombarded with right now in media. And I don't want to speak for any of your bodies, but my body, oh, it's like right here. So I'm blocking a lot of accounts and just trying to like tune my algorithm. What was I saying? Because now I'm remembering the primary trauma. Appease, fight, flight, freeze, appease. So tightness, okay, generally, we can contemplate that as pressure, making it challenging to move, but also the nature of water, y'all. Water exists, and then when it freezes, it's called a mineral. It turns into a whole fucking kingdom. The mineral kingdom, holding your breath. Let's meet some of the Shen so that I can teach you some breaths. In Chinese medicine, the organs of our, that's not good enough. Our yin organs, stomach or spleen, heart, liver, kidneys, and lungs, they each get their own helper called a Shen, S-H-E-N. Easiest way to parse, I think, is T-I-O-N defines, S-H-E-N describes. And I'm looking for a one sheet that has all the Shen. And there's a set of practices called the healing sounds, which we can do real quick. That is a way to tune, it vibrates in our larynx, so it's a way to stimulate the vagus nerve here. But it also activates these Shen, which are, I'm gonna have to send myself, here we go. It activates the Shen. So do you remember in Labyrinth when she's like not happy about her brother and she goes, oh, I just want the goblins to da-da-da-da, and the goblins are sitting there and they're like, come on, just say it. I wish they would come and take you right, like, but they can't move until they're activated. That's superposition, by the way. Like from a physics perspective. But as Shen, as helpful entities, not as little troublemakers, the Shen are assisting, they're assistive technology. And so our lungs, the Shen for the lungs is named Po. That goes with the metal phase or the metal element. And the duality of courage and grief. Such that, and I even have like some things here. One of the things that might help you personally is get an analog factor by you if you're looking at a computer to do a thing. Because there's no dimension in your machine other than the machine. So lungs are gray. You could also call this violet, but in Chinese medicine, it's gray. We all know where our lungs are, yes? Take a breath in through your nose, out of your mouth. Excellent. Our bodies breathe whether or not we ask it to. We also have a decent amount of conscious control over our breath. So you don't need to count numbers or anything. You can contemplate it though as gathering the positive and guiding the negative. The spin. S. Amber. Yes. This is my thing. Courage and grief. Okay. And then Po knows what to do. We don't need to worry about it. And I will tell you, this concept has been present in China as a culture since the Neolithic age, since the end of the Stone Age and coming into the Bronze Age. Dangers untold, hardships unnumbered. I had fought my way to the Goblin City. And why did David Bowie never take me into his arms and turn me into his concubine? I don't know. But that was my weird, kinky as a child. Oh, I have to say I'm talking about my own thing. Sometimes Tic-Tac gets mad at me. Hold on. Content disclosure. Okay, thank you. And then the second one is kidneys with Zhu, Z-H-I. These, by the way, if you go up to the up there, the link, there is there are two buttons on my homepage right now. One of them will take you to a stand store where there are free materials that bring you into all of this, including this geometry, enough that you would never ever have to give me money in order to access and practice this. You got on a bus. David Bowie. He was so cool. David Bowie was so cool. Kidneys. Water. Color is blue. Circles in the land of neuroaffective somatics, circles are ordinary. These are ordinary elements though. And just like any sphere or circle, you can't cut this up and have it be a finite slice. That is the nature of pie. So rather than trying to cut it up, we go, okay, well, I'm alive, so I don't need to worry about that. Kidneys, shock and calm, chew. Chew. Real simple. Chew. And the vibrations influence the turgidity here, but also our tongue here. And so what I did over in this side is, this is that inner landscape, and it's on top of a bottom up brain where at the base here is the cerebellum. That's the trigeminal nerve in here. Ends up aligning to your inner child. And then that's your olfactory nerve, and the Buddha represents your optic. And do we need to activate the voice? You need to do something, yes, but you don't need to do it loud. In fact, when I was brought into this, subvocal was the term. Very like a whisper. It's the way that you would get attention and bring attention to a baby. Where, and the whispering goes with this idea of, in Chinese cosmology, I'm trying to find words, that it wasn't a big bang that started everything. It was a ripple. Here we go. So this is a trip toy. This is one of that you can like put on your hand and shit. Looks like that torus shape that our heart makes. For physics, for Western physics, astrophysics, cosmology, Carl Sagan, Einstein, all those guys, most of them are men. The universe started. That's the nature of the Big Bang. There was some big violent crack. Oh my goodness. Bam! And now here we are moving through space-time. For the Chinese, historically, it was more like this. There was a nothing. And then there were these little vibrations that started to happen in the no thing. Then there was some chaos occurred. That's one. Then you get the polarity. So rather than the bang being the initiation or the instigation, it's vibrations. Just like you would hear, I think that most of the civilizations, the Great River civilizations, all had this logic, but China did not get conquested or erased in the same way that India did, which is where the Indus Valley ended up. Mesopotamia is now the Middle East, and Mesopotamia and Egypt was destroyed. So China has definitely had its problems as a space, but none of them ended up with humans who look like I do. And that makes a difference. Its footprint is the same. The DNA for the cosmology is all the same. It's the most pure. It's the least, yes, I guess if you want to say it like that, yeah. And then my model, neuroaffective somatics, is looking at this as semiotics and a visual language of signs and symbols and something called a meme, M-E-M-E, where a meme is a unit of culture. It's a culture unit. We are in a very memeified world. Because when we're looking at things symbolically, we don't need to be using language. So our language centers are, thank you so much, are kind of forward in the brain. Neurologists tend to talk about upstairs brain and downstairs brain. I encourage you to contemplate it as front and back, and that's because the majority of species are with their bellies to the ground. Most species who live on Earth are belly to the ground. They're four-legged creatures. Birds are not, but they can fly. We cannot fly. How can I show that to you? I can show it to you. Not easily, because I don't have it all in front of me. Singing so that I can take time. All right, well, you're gonna trust me and believe me. But humans also, we begin on our bellies. We do not begin standing and just moving, right? Exactly. When we're young, when we're little babies, we're talking about trauma as a current event. Epigenetics is a current event. And how and why Katie's frame of neuroaffective somatics might help us move into a more metaphor, more somatic and much more personal lens, such that we're supported in our growth and development rather than having to provide evidence. And the regulation models all require you and me to show evidence. And if the disruption and the trauma and the tragedy is big enough, long enough, or strong enough, we may no longer be able. Yes, well then here you are. You're in the right place. So the 3 layers of my model, Bigfoot, are genetics, memetics, and epigenetics. Genes, memes, and epigenes. I'm doing it primarily through information architecture. Someday we can talk about my training. I have a lot of very specific training. But our brains are only oriented this way once we're bipedal. Before we're bipedal, our brains are oriented this way. Literally, think about like crawling. The prefrontal cortex is forward, and this back of the brain, the hind brain, is the back of the brain. This is called the cerebellum. This is voluntary movement. Here's our brain stem. Pituitary gland, hypothalamus, pineal. That is called the corpus callosum. That might also be showing us the third ventricle. There's a whole area of the brain that is generating and governing our experience of cerebral spinal fluid. And then these are different cortices, cortexes of the brain. Your brain, by the way, does not exist in a nervous system regulation model. Only your vagus nerve does, which is, I think, batshit. Look at this. This is our central processing unit. It is the... My cat has now achieved catnip status. Our brain is an ocean. In Chinese medicine, it's called the ocean of marrow. And I love how this parietal fascia, these are parietal. So we have fascia that creates cavities. There's a whole special cavity just for the central nervous system. In the central nervous system are olfactory and optic nerves, not the nerves that help our eyes move, but the one that sees. Both of those are central. They don't leave the brain. So when we have to start fixing shit, if we're only given something like this, where it's like, you have three things, sympathetic and parasympathetic, and you need to be in a place, and it's gonna da-da-da. Our autonomic nervous system, or automagic, it's autonomic because it just does what it does. We cannot consciously control it. We can influence the environment, we can influence pressure, but we don't have conscious control. I've always found that to be very relaxing, personally, because it just takes a lot of pressure off. There's another way to contemplate our nervous system as efferent and blended cranial nerves in the brain. There's my kitty cat having her meltdown. She's freaking out. But it's always going to be a trine. It's always going to be a trinity with me. I'm just looking for the slide that I have that shows all the different kinds of fascia. Here again, this is just that inner landscape, so you can look at that one. I'm looking for fascia. At the base of it, where the belly is, and you can see there's twins. That's primordial yin and yang. They go with our feet, but also with something called chirality, in that our body has a type of symmetry that you can't just put your hands on top of each other. They don't fit. This is called chirality. And then the middle is, oh, come on, Katie. Where you can see the weaver. She's sitting on that ledge with her spinning wheel. And then the child on the star bridge is inner child, but also potential child, but also existing thymus gland, which is what gives us our T cells in our immune system. And then at the head, the Buddha is reaching up to nirvana. That's your tongue specifically. And then Lao Tzu, the wise old man sitting there, is wisdom or knowledge. And those 3 zones have virtues associated with them. Here we go. The virtue of the head, polyvagal theory causes too much shame. Polyvagal theory just doesn't work physically, but it is rooted in control. Yeah, I've trained with them, so I'm saying this knowingly. What I did here, and also they're just, most of science, most of Western medicine ignores or bypasses our fascia, our connective tissue. Most of that is due to our history of slave trade and how we learned how to do global logistics. That's how we learned how to do global logistics. That's fucked up. And then we experimented on those humans as well as consuming them. And a lot of those experiments, especially in gynecology, have influenced narratives about pain, physical pain, that have gone through the generations, have propagated forward. Cat needs some shrimp. Yes. So it's also very impossible to measure how our connective tissue is operating, is existing while it's alive, because it reacts to stress and to trauma. So, do I have training? Yes. Oh, you're an IFS therapist. So what I have done is I'm just adding the body. That's all I'm doing. So in this lens, okay, the base is the exile, the middle is the firefighter, the head is the manager. But you need a whole human. And especially with something like dissociation, yes. Mm-hmm. So to the IFS, just to show this therapist, I have trained in IFS. It's going to show up. Yeah, the middle is the firefighter. So the way that I have this laid out is to the 5 phases of Chinese medicine. So our exile is going to be where we're experiencing all of our senses. And then in the body, it is here in this visualization from Chinese medicine, that's also then going to be our gut biome, how we experience agency. Can we operate? Can we do the law of 2 feet? This is the hypogastric plexus of nerves that sits below and behind all of our fertility organs and digestive system. And that's what's recoiling in the exile experience. This is just how I'm writing it. Well, your manager is also, these correspond to the brain. None of these are good or bad. I just need to have a real fucking location in my body, personally. I'm that kind of autistic. Manager, do you see how I have Po, Yi, Shen, Hun? Those are the Shen. Those are the spirit of. They are the ones that are going to be guiding something like congenital heart conditions will be managed by the Shen. Okay, every fucking human on the Zitterbart side of my family has some kind of itis, colitis, gastritis, whatever. That's going to be Yi. We have that. And then firefighter, I just put the emotions here. So it's a different way to go into it. And I personally prefer a standardized frame. The frame that IFS is most often bringing us into is this one, where we have this core self. Imagine that having a hole in it and you put it on a record player and it goes around and around. That's what this is communicating. That does not help me get off the fucking wheel. That makes me obligated to be a hamster on the wheel. So I just parsed it into the body. I actually just did a workshop on this. I should put it up like for sale. And then in the body, when you add connective tissue, we end up with, I'm gonna have to download this stuff, but we have 3 major networks in the brain. I'm gonna send myself some slides. The 3 major networks are the salience, central executive, and default mode network. Up here I have them aligned to the nerves, but just like down here, just generally, these networks, by the way, were not identified until after the Y2K. I was being a tree-hugging hippie at the time. When I learned about it, I was like, woo, that's amazing. Yes, so extraordinary IFS, where is it? Here we go. I just have to send myself these slides. Ordinary is going to be, this is how I do it without being too much of an asshole. Ordinary is how a thing is written. Extraordinary is how we actually put it to use. And from an extraordinary lens, the default setting is always going to be fascia and shen, which means I will never fucking know for sure your experience. I cannot. You and I can be in a conversation, we can have shared agreements, we can be totally yes, 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 but I will never know for sure that we're having the same thing. It's just like looking at a color. We can agree that something is a color, but are we actually seeing the same color? There's no way to know, which is so cool. Until you have to be regulated and you have to do it right way. And I'm not saying, and the reason I like IFS is it really doesn't go there, where regulation does. My phone's gonna. Okay, so IFS. Here, these are the networks as imaged through functional MRI. I pulled these from a paper. Salience, central executive, and default mode. The central executive and default mode network have this relationship, like a seesaw. The salience is literally, it just parses. It's like handing things out. You go to central, you go to default. You go to central, you go to default. Egregor, I don't know what that means. I have to look it up. Occult, non-physical entity. Yes. Shen. Very much. Yeah. The salience network is akin to the first bird in a flock of birds, where that first bird is guiding the whole flock. And if you've ever looked at a flock, one of the tails is always longer. They're never just like the same. Salience is how we experience something called valence or spin. Actually spin, not valence, where salience network is going to be aligned. We're doing cosmic feng shui. Something like, are you right-handed or left-hand dominant? Right side, left side dominant. Salience is going to be influenced greatly by what is our genotype. My salience network has to handle this with my eyes. Salience is going to be very much in Chinese medicine, we call it, this is the nature of the brain as an ocean. And do you see how this would be, this is right where your third eye would be, by the way. So these are the hemispheres of the brain. This is the back of the brain. I have it green and white because that's showing green, and it just kind of goes together. If this was fascia, if this was tissue in the body, this would be parietal fascia. Oh, I love that. Yes. Bigfoot, you are so correct. And then what I love about an egregore or a Shen is it creates the archetype as object in a object-oriented lens, as programming, as programmatic. So the archetype of, whatever. And then look at that. Now you and I can have a conversation about it, and we're talking about an object and how we're experiencing it personally. As a skinny white yoga chick who exists as one of the most dangerous planets on the money, or whatever, the love of money, money would be an egregore. The love of it is you. But there are two different categories of Shen. One category for Chinese medicine is specific to the body. The other category is specific to the soul or the spirit. Yeah. Shen most align, I believe, to something like our mitochondria and to sentience, to the fact that we can go to sleep and our body still does our body. The fact that, like when I had my stroke in 2019, I was shattered. I had no relation to the third dimension. I couldn't walk. I couldn't talk. It was blah. And the Shen for that was, I can't remember what I was going to say. Something drives people to amass more and more money. Nurture. Nature versus nurture. Yeah. This is the realm of epigenetics, the realm, salience, the head. And the virtue here is humility. So this perspective, if this was like as above, so below, this is as below. This is the perspective of what's the ceiling, what's the cap, what's the limit. Topping and bottoming. The central executive network, so this I have aligned to manager. I gave it the color blue. This, pretend like it's a CMY cube. Hold on. I have more things to share. From below, as above, as below, as though. As though is the missing piece. And that is a factor of language and media. Let me show you your spine. As above, as below, as though. And then I have this now aligned to the 3 different kinds of archetypes. As above is looking down at a thing, literally. My view is above. As above, from a lived experience, this is where the exile experience is. Notice that there's no central nervous system here. As above is how we orient all of our maps. It's how we orient all of our data. And it has a tendency to be biased towards empire, towards ability, and towards able-bodiedness, right? As above is the experience of being squashed. Like people who experience oppression have pressure coming from as above. This is the lens of our brain. They usually call it axial, but like on a graph paper, this would be the x-axis. This would be the line, the horizon line. It is ordinal in nature, it tends to show up as we are ordering it this way. This is north, south, east, west, blah, 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 blah. As below, I have given to this geometry because that's gorgeous. This is how we're usually shown our brain, and it is not right or left. As below is what's the boundary, what's the upward limit? How tall can we really be as a species? Without all the technology, do you think we would have 75-story buildings if we didn't have an elevator? This is inherently a microscope. It's going to make us larger to what we are looking at or perceiving. This is inherently a telescope. It's going to make us smaller to what we are perceiving from an order of magnitude perspective. This is where a lot of us experience marginalization, where it just gets real tight, but we can still like move around and stuff. And that I have given to the color blue. So as above is earth. This is cosmic though, not ordinary. As below, this is heaven in Chinese language, but it would, or cosmology, but it would also be the virtues of humility. So like as rhetoric, pathos, ethos, logos, as though. Magenta, this is what's missing. I've given it to neural tissue, neural fascia. That's a, look at that, that's a rendering of our fucking spine. Isn't that incredible? This has a brain. This has a brain. That does not. This is where we harvest organs. This is where we put brain death. This is where we center intervention, CPR, and life support in our concept of medicine. As a lived experience, firefighters are also, though, you know, they go into the tree to get the kitty cat out of a tree. They're not just showing up with the hose. They're the first responders that we can trust. But the firefighter has kind of like this dual experience based on, is it happening inside or outside? For China, it's called Weidon and Neidon, where N, Neidon, in Weidon, bountiful living versus cold dark universe, as in cold dark matter, dark cold. So cold dark matter is how I've aligned it with lambda as Homo sapien. But China doesn't have a Chinese cosmology. There's no good or bad. There's no sacred and profane. There's not even shadows, really, except for to give us an experience of depth perception. The guiding principles are towards, that didn't really make a difference, compassion, moderation, and humility. Where compassion, moderation, humility. And then up here, I have different renderings of these 5 phases of the Chinese medicine wheel. That has an extra magenta where it's usually shown to you as these 5. Let me show it to you. Actually, we haven't gotten finished with all the networks. I'm going to do the networks. Salience network is as below. This is not a religion. This is cosmology and neuroscience. But if I had to label it, I would say Taoism, non-dualism. As though, central executive. As above, default mode. As below, salience. Just from a rendering the bias visible in data, but also contemplating how bound it is to gravity. So as below, as the salience would be just like waterfalls, man. That's what it does. As above would be hello. Hi. Oh, am I being comfortable on my own furniture and you can't have any of that? She has issues. As though, I just want you to notice, do you see how the middle of the corpus callosum is not happening here? In our body, if I was going to map this to the body, I mean, not that the brain has any mapping to the body, but if I was going to, these would be shoulders and hips. If I was going to, this would be your bum, your kidneys, your head, and your feet. If I was going to, this would be your nose, your eyes, your ears, and specifically the nerves that do this, that help your eyes move. If I was going to. Nobody does this. People don't have, so metaphorically, there, now isn't it amazing? When you start with the body and map the concepts to the body, there's a way to use numerology to do it so that you can start with logic and then just take a look. Hi. Okay, she's feeling better. I also like this cosmology, Joshi, because it's all associations. It's all associations. So for the, here's the water phase. This is just me. Isn't she lovely? I also have a black and white one. The spirit of the kidneys has a name, but look at this: virtue, sense organ, direction, climate, color, planet. So let's just say, because I'm very oriented towards symbols, like give me a symbol. I do not want words. I do not want numbers. But some people have a different tendency. So if your tendency is to astrology, then why should you shouldn't have to like translate. I already did the translation. If your tendency is towards color, then do it, have the association be color. Do I believe spirits are explained through religious means? I believe that, oh, I see what you're saying. Religion is a big word. And human design is a trap. If you ask me, it's a tool of supremacy. He was not a very good Taoist, but I don't know him. I just know the work a little bit. As far as, hold on one second. So I personally, Bingus, do not look for science to give evidence to what I understand spiritually. I just kind of like have the understanding, and then if the science shows up, that's fantastic. So like as it relates to sentience as a factor of autonomic or automagic functions, I personally have always held that this is a rendering of a mitochondria, because it's 3 generations of human, it's a fertility chart, it's clearly a female phenomena. There's a mechanism in here for it to be male. Like there's just like all kinds of ways to relate to this. I would never claim that mitochondria are sentient, but I also don't need to, because a scientist just published a major finding. That is my phone telling me I have therapy soon. I do personally find that as soon as we have to attach certainty and numbers, everything collapses, and that is science. That is like the whole concept of a waveform collapse. Tribal resources, so going to be a mutation that separates us from cooperation in the body. I would just approach that with a big salt cube. Because there's no way to prove it. You can't prove future mutations. And we do not have you cannot be separate from your own body. Even in my stroke, when I had no relationship to the third dimension, I still had a body. If you and I, if like the essence of a human becomes separate from the body, then we're in like big eugenics land as well. Ego death, of course I have, yes. Mitochondria are cellular organisms, and they occurred through a fusion process. The thinking is that it occurred through fusion, that the whole way that cells happened is fusion. The government always needs us, always. We are supply. So ego death is associated with psychedelics. I am in favor of ego. I am pro-ego. But once we have to stack the 3 networks in the brain, once they're stacked, the default mode has to be on the bottom. Why am I pro-ego? Because of discernment. Because I am, therefore I think. Because without a singularity, I cannot contemplate a duality or a plurality. I can only just be messed up in it. And ego is not bad. It's just made wrong by Freud et al. And Carl Jung and all of that kind of stuff. But the idea of thought, I am, therefore I think, Descartes. What the fuck? That's not true. Oh, it's gonna be, just enjoy your time here. I have to jump off soon to go to therapy. So the framework, the total framework is called Neuroaffective Somatics. I wrote a book. You do not need to buy my book, but there is a book that combines nervous system, Chinese medicine. Do I see ego and personality as being separate? Oh, I love that question. Ego is existence, personality is affect. Yeah. If everyone was ego-less, we wouldn't have language. We would not have achieved agriculture. Explore with curiosity, yes. It's one way to contemplate, yeah. But, you know, ego in what context? Ego id superego? Ego as bravado? Like, it's a... But as far as a thing, I am. Therefore, I think. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to therapy and get my head shrunk. We're doing it twice a week these days because it's been that exciting out. My goodness. And hopefully I'll be up for coming on a little bit later. Do I feel like the man in the cave, like from a Plato perspective? I'm very non-Western in that. I personally feel like the goddess of oblivion. Oh, that discovered there is more. Maybe. Yeah. I just, what I know is, what I truly know, okay, and this is science, this is not Katie having an opinion. None of these models will work if we're also already in a tragic moment or experiencing something that is bigger than any one of us. We need tools, and so just like you would create scaffolding for children, I've been like, well, how can I create scaffolding for human? Behavioral therapy is absolutely a trap. All behavior models are. And that I am not in favor of. At least not giving primacy to. Okay. Live long and prosper. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.